Thank you. All right, so let me introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. My name is Hillary O'Toole. I'm the Executive Director here at the Beaver County Marcellus Awareness Community. We are really excited to have you join us today. We're excited to welcome two experts from the Environmental Health Project. They are an organization dedicated to protecting public health from the impacts of shale gas development. They'll be going over the key findings from our first quarterly report for our AirSense project, which is specific to Beaver County, and you all know is comprised of 5 air qual monitors that have been placed in and around the county. So let me introduce both of their representatives. Nathan Duran is the program manager at EHP, where he leads a team of experts in public health, data analytics, and policy. His work focuses on air quality monitoring, pollution modeling, and evaluating policy solutions to protect communities. Nathan holds a degree from the University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon University. Aaron Makatura is the project coordinator for Appalachia at EHP. He works directly with local communities, helping them understand the health risks of shale gas development and empowering them with knowledge and resources. If you joined us for any of our installation days or saw any of our pictures online, you most likely saw Aaron, and they have a fellow colleague, Taylor, and they joined us in the installation, which was really great. So we are very grateful to have Nathan and Aaron both here today to share their insights and share what they've seen and what they found. So I am going to let you both take it away.
Oh, all right. Hi, everyone. I want to make sure that everyone is able to see my screen. Are we?
All good.
All right, awesome. So, as Hillary said, we are here for the first quarterly results for the AirSense community monitoring. These results are going to be from December, the beginning of December 2024 until March of 2025. Um, All right, and tonight we are going to do a little bit of background on EHP, the project, just to make sure, if you were not here, I believe it was in November for the Eyes on Air, where we discussed about this part of the project a little more in depth, talk about the results from these 3 months, and then talk about some ways that you can protect your health with some of those results, and then finally go into a question and answer session. So if you guys could keep your questions until that time, we would greatly appreciate it. All right, so first thing is I want to introduce Environmental Health Project for those of you that have not interacted with our organization before. EHP is a public health nonprofit organization that defends public health in the face of shale gas development. Some people might be thinking, is this shale gas development? Us at EHP do believe that it is because the ethane cracker is using gas that is coming from the fracking wells that are located right in our backyard. So this definitely falls within EHP's purview. Other things that are program areas that uh, other program areas that we include are uh, data collection and analysis, health and wellness education, and then policy and advocacy initiatives. We partner with community organizations such as BCMAC and do a health watch program. So any communities that have infrastructure, shale gas infrastructure that they are concerned about can apply for our health watch program. We just opened a cohort in the Appalachia region. So if you are located in the area and have some questions about that, you can reach out to myself and I can direct you towards that program. All right. So moving on to the AirSense project overview. So the goal of AirSense was to allow Beaver County community members to access real-time air quality information and allow them to take action to mitigate any health risks associated with the air quality that they were experiencing. During this project, we were using 5 high-quality stationary monitors to test for PM 2.5 or fine particulate matter, NO2 or nitrogen dioxide, ozone, and VOCs. There is a mobile testing unit that is not included in these results, but is something that BCMAC has been advertising. So Hillary can speak more as to if you would like to have that unit come to your house. Um, Additionally, this project is going to also focus on community education with a website with real-time air quality from the monitors that we are going to discuss tonight, and provide resources to help protect your health from air pollution. There's also health monitoring that is going to be going on with, I believe, the University of Pittsburgh. So that is something that, again, BCMAC will be able to expand more on. But tonight we're going to focus more on those stationary air monitors. And as you can see on the screen, those are one of those really nice AeroQual monitors. With their stand, they're about 5 feet tall. And with that pole for that station, the one that goes up super high, that is actually also the weather station. So some of the weather data that is collected as well. So for the stationary monitoring, what we're going to be talking about in this report, the monitoring period that we're looking at, as I said, is going to be from December of last year, the beginning of December to the beginning of March of this year. We're using AeroQual AQM65 monitors that continuously measure for particulate matter, nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen dioxide or one of the nitrogen oxides, ozone, and VOCs. EHP wrote and shared a community air quality report that was shared with BCMAC, as well as the key finding documents that I believe is going to be shared with those in attendance and other community members as well. So the first thing that I want to look at is going to be a map of the region showing uh, exactly where the monitors are. The first thing that you can see, those blue diamonds are going to be the 5 AeroQual monitors. One is located in Rochester, one in Beaver Borough, one in, I believe that's Monaca, one in Raccoon Township, and then one in Beaver Township. Um, the uh, the orange diamonds are going to be the PADEP monitors. The one that is located to monitor the AirQual Monitor C or the AQ5951. That is co-located with the PADEP monitor in Beaver. And that one is measuring both ozone and PM 2.5. The other 2 monitors, the DEP monitor in Beaver Falls and the monitor in Beaver Township, are not co-located, but both of those measure only ozone. So these are not exactly like for like in some of the things that are being measured, but all of the AirQual monitors are measuring all 4 pollutants that were mentioned. As you can see, there are at this point 8 permitted Title V facilities, with one on the way that we are aware of that is currently gearing up to go through the permitting process with community engagement. Those are shown as the clouds throughout the county, with 2 up north, and then the rest, 5 more kind of along the river, and then 2 more that are located close to the border of Butler and Beaver counties. And then you can see that there are about 47 what are called minor source facilities. So these are facilities that do not qualify for the Title V or major source facilities. But that doesn't mean that these are small. These are small facilities by themselves. That just means that they do not actually meet the requirements of how many HAPs or hazardous air pollutants that they would be emitting to qualify as a major source, or they do not cross the threshold of emitting over 100 tons per year, or have the potential to emit 100 tons per year of any air pollutant. Um, so in Beaver County, at the last census, Beaver County had a population of a little over 168,000. In the county, there is roughly a quarter of residents that will qualify under vulnerable populations, uh, with a quarter of the residents being over the age of 64. And so with vulnerable populations, some of the chronic illness rates that can relate to air pollution um, would be asthma, which was in the 74th percentile, COPD in the 69th percentile, high blood pressure in the 71st, and then high cholesterol in the 85th. So a lot of them are up there above that 50% threshold. And I'm going to hand it over to Nathan to talk about the results themselves.
Great, thanks so much, Aaron. So I'm going to go through high-level results from the monitoring that's happened so far. We have in the chat the link to the AirSense report, which goes into a great bit more detail about the things that I'm going to be talking about here, and touches on some topics that I'm not going to have time to get to. Yeah, let's dive on in here. Next slide, please. There. So we're going to start by looking at PM 2.5 or fine particulate matter. So fine particulate matter is a very important air pollutant, right? So this is as many of you already know, the air pollutant that is most important for human health worldwide in terms of the global impact to health and premature death. So this is, a very important thing to be monitoring. And what we're seeing on the screen here is a graph of 24-hour average readings from the 5 different units, with the air quality index categories represented as different color bars in the background. So green is good, yellow is moderate, orange is unhealthy for sensitive groups, and red is unhealthy. So this is the air quality index categories as defined by the EPA. So here we're looking at 24-hour averages. So these are, daily averages of PM 2.5 readings. What we're seeing here is that largely we're in the good AQI category, with one notable deviation from that at AQ 953, that is the Center Township location. That occurred on a single day, going up into the unhealthy category. It's unclear exactly what caused that, but by and large, we are staying in that good category, which is, well, good. That is what we want to see. Some, spikes up into moderate, but that's to be expected. This generally looks like relatively good PM 2.5 levels. But these are daily averages. So there are events that aren't necessarily captured by this, which we'll get into a little later. But before that, we do have national ambient air quality standards for PM 2.5 from the federal government. So if we go to the next slide, Aaron, we can see a comparison of these monitors' results to those EPA standards. So we have a daily standard, which is going to be your first column here, the 98th percentile 24-hour readings. And we can see that the EPA standard is 35 micrograms per cubic meter, and all of the monitors were below that value. So that's a good thing. We can see that these are also tend to be better than readings in AirView, which is our data management system, and is pretty on par with all of the air quality readings. There's a little bit of time that aren't included in this report. So that's why those numbers are a little different. Looking at the average of all readings, that's what we compare to the annual standard. So it's not a perfect comparison, because the annual standard, of course, is evaluated on a whole year's worth of data. Well, we're just looking at 3 months here. But as you can see, across these 3 months that we do have data for, we are pretty well below that EPA standard of 9 micrograms per cubic meter, which is a newly lowered standard, I should say, down from 12 micrograms per cubic meter that it had been for quite some time. So this is all sort of looking pretty good on the PM 2.5 front when comparing to EPA standards. Aaron, next slide, please. So we at EHP also like to look at data in a more granular or higher resolution way. And there's a few reasons for this. So EPA standards are effective ways at evaluating the health burden, particularly for very important health endpoints like premature death. But there are some things that can still impact people's lives that happen on a shorter time frame. So we also like to ensure that people have access to 15-minute average monitor readings as well, to be able to identify short-term episodic emission events that are being captured by these monitors. And as you can see here, some of these short-term pollution events do go quite a bit higher than we were seeing on that 24-hour average graph. And so these indicate that there are some short-term high exposures to PM 2.5 that are being captured by these monitors. And short-term exposures to high readings like this can lead to asthma exacerbations, can lead to headaches and other short-term reactions to air quality that are certainly important for quality of life, and over the long term with repeated exposures can still impact overall health. So we do like to provide both, even though these 15-minute average monitor readings aren't necessarily comparable to standards from the federal government. But we can see here on these graphs that there are multiple times over the course of these 3 months where monitor readings get quite high, even for a short time, and high enough to impact the health of folks that may be nearby. So with that, we can go to the next slide, please, Aaron. So the AQI is sometimes used by folks over at EPA to evaluate air quality readings on a shorter time frame than 24-hour readings for PM 2.5. And usually this is using hourly data, but we applied this to our 15-minute averages that we were looking at and said, okay, what was the highest AQI category that these PM 2.5 sensors got to on any given day, even if it was only for 15 minutes? So this can give you a sense of like, okay, even if we tend to be in that good or moderate category on a 24-hour average, how high did it end up getting on a shorter time frame? So here we can see that 1.1% of the time we made it all the way up into that very unhealthy AQI category, which is not a place you want to be. Again, it's the description of air quality here is not one-to-one since we're talking about 15 minutes, but certainly that's not where you want to be. Unhealthy, 11% of days made it up into the unhealthy category, even if only for 15 minutes. We saw another 11% in unhealthy for sensitive groups, where the majority did not leave the good or moderate AQI categories. So what does this mean? Generally, PM 2.5 levels aren't a large cause for concern, but there are still short-term events that this monitoring network is capturing that aren't necessarily going to be something that is captured on a larger time frame. So generally good news, but still some things to keep an eye out for. So that is PM 2.5. I'm going to move on to nitrogen dioxide. Nitrogen dioxide is generally used as a marker for all nitrogen oxides in air quality monitoring. Nitrogen oxides and nitrogen dioxide specifically comes from mostly combustion of fuel. So cars, power plants, and some industrial processes give off NO2. And we can see here we have 24-hour average monitor readings. We can see that largely we are seeing agreement between monitors, which tends to point to regional sources of pollution, but this one perhaps less so than the PM 2.5, which does mean that there are some localized variations in nitrogen oxide levels. But if we go to the next slide, we can see comparisons to EPA standards. And we can see that, so the standards are a little different on how they're calculated, but we can see that the EPA standard for the daily standard on the left column again is 100, and we didn't get above 36 on any of these monitors. So that is pretty good in terms of nitrogen dioxide. Similarly, the annual standard is 53, and we're not seeing anything above 7.5. So in terms of NO2, we're not seeing much that's a cause for concern in the immediate health responses that people are going to have. And I think it's important to keep in mind that nitrogen dioxide and nitrogen oxides are an important pollutant for the formation of secondary pollution in the atmosphere, including ozone, which we will get to in a bit. So it takes quite a bit of nitrogen dioxide to end up, causing particularly troublesome health responses. But the fact that nitrogen dioxide goes on to form ozone is an important thing to keep in mind and a good reason to monitor it, even if it doesn't get up to these EPA standard levels. So if you want to go to the next slide, Aaron, we can see here that, even on a 15-minute average scale, we are not getting, short-term spikes that get above that, that 53 level or 100 level. So both of the standards we are seeing pretty well below. So this is good news from the human health perspective of our nitrogen dioxide monitoring. So we can go on to ozone. So ozone is, if PM 2.5 is the most important air pollutant for human health, then ozone is going to be number 2. Ozone causes a lot of, a wide array of health issues. And it is formed secondarily. So it's formed by other pollutants in the atmosphere reacting with each other in the presence of light, so sunlight. So this is something that ozone, has a lot of seasonal variations, a lot of regional variations, and can be difficult to really, pin down in terms of, what particular source is causing it, right? Since it's being formed in the atmosphere from other pollutants. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't monitor it because, again, it is very important for human health. And we wanted to ensure that this area, which does have a history of ozone, of elevated ozone levels, continues to be monitored. So here we are seeing 24-hour average monitor readings of our ozone monitors. And these do tend to be pretty close with one another again, which does make sense since this is a pollutant that, again, is getting formed in the atmosphere. So across, small areas like the one we're monitoring across a county, they do tend to be relatively similar across that county. It doesn't mean there aren't variations, right? We can see that 949, for instance, is consistently a bit higher than some of the other monitors. So it's good to keep an eye on those differences and to ensure that we are staying below EPA standards. So we can go to the next slide here. These again are calculated a bit differently once more. So when they evaluate ozone levels, they look at the fourth highest 8-hour daily maximum ozone level, which is a little hard to wrap your head around. So every day they will find the 8-hour time period with the highest 8-hour average ozone reading. And every day will get their own determined. Sometimes it might be, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sometimes it might be from noon to 8 p.m. The time can shift back and forth, but every day gets a 8-hour daily maximum concentration. And then the standard is that the fourth highest daily 8-hour maximum concentration has to be below 70 parts per billion. And we can see, so we don't have a year's worth of data, certainly, right? So that's important to keep in mind here, but we can see that we have yet to exceed that 70 parts per billion level across any of these monitoring stations. So that is a good thing. And we are happy that these monitors are largely in agreement with what the DEP is monitoring as well. We do, if we go to the next slide here, also have our 15-minute average monitor readings as well. We can see that these also tend to be, pretty in line with one another, as we would expect, and that even on the 15-minute level, we are not seeing ozone levels that go above 70 parts per billion. So this, in terms of ozone, is what we would want to see. Now, it is winter, right? So winter tends not to be the biggest time for ozone formation, but regional and geographic differences can shake up what the normal seasonal differences will be. So, we will be keeping an eye on how all of this shakes out as we get into the warmer months. That's certainly something that we're curious about and look forward to being able to report back to everyone. So we can go into our final pollutant type here. And this one is perhaps the most complicated as a pollutant. So this is a PID. This is a detector that can identify when VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, are present in the air. VOCs are a wide-ranging group of compounds that include things like acetone and benzene and formaldehyde, things that you certainly don't want to be breathing in, but some of them are very dangerous, even at very low concentrations, and some of them require quite a bit more of that particular compound to cause a big health concern. So this sensor can't differentiate necessarily between, okay, is this a bunch of benzene in the air or is this a bunch of acetone? So it's an indicator of whether or not there are VOCs in the atmosphere, but it's not going to give us an exact idea of the health burden that is a result of those VOCs. So that's important to keep in mind. And I look forward to additional seasonal analysis that we can provide once we have a full year's worth of data to see how these VOC levels are changing over time, how they change based on wind patterns and other information that we do report on in that full AirSense report. But based on the data we have here, we can see some of our VOC levels. So we can see that there are, this is maybe more of a mixed bag where there does tend to be coordination, but the scale of these spikes does change pretty drastically depending on which monitoring site you're at. I say pretty drastically, but if we actually look at the magnitude of the differences in these levels of, around 5 parts per billion or so, that's not the biggest discrepancy in the world. But we're looking at 24-hour averages here, right? So that is over the course of a whole day. If we go to the next slide here, We can see comparisons of these 5 locations, and we can see that, compared to some of the others, we do have quite a bit of variation between these monitoring sites, right? So, for instance, on the 98th percentile of 24-hour average readings, we can see that 949, which is the Raccoon Township location, is at 3.1 parts per billion, whereas over at 951, the Beaver location, we're up at 12. That's a pretty significant difference that we're looking at there. It's important to note that we're providing metrics that look a lot like the PM values, that the particulate matter values that we were comparing to EPA standards, but we don't have EPA standards to compare these numbers to, due to the issues I was talking about earlier of the fact that we don't know exactly which VOCs we are detecting here. So we can see that the average of all readings at 950, that's the Brighton Township site, are higher than everywhere else on the full average. But it's also worth noting that that monitoring site has had a little bit of issues staying online that hopefully are fully resolved, so that that is not fully representative of what is going on there. And that's particularly important for these VOC readings, since there's a short time period where it needs to calibrate once it comes back online. So if we go to the next slide here, I will show my last busy line graph, which shows a bit of a chaotic situation here with VOCs, which is to be expected. And we can see, if you're able to see through the many lines and many colors, that there again is quite a lot of variation. We can see spikes happening around the same time across different monitor locations, but at different magnitudes, which does point to VOCs coming in from somewhere and hitting these monitors at different locations at different times. So I think we can move on to the conclusions here that I have. Again, there is that full report that goes into a lot more detail. There is a key findings document that will be made available to folks that goes over this. But overall, we saw levels of air pollution in Beaver County that were modest, with short-term spikes of all 4 pollutants that were measured. This information points to regional sources of primary pollutants and secondary formation of ozone across the region during the daytime. PM 2.5, all monitors met the 24-hour EPA standard, and most monitors showed infrequent but high short-term exposures lasting for 15 minutes or more that could impact your health. NO2, we saw levels that were well below EPA standards on both the annual and daily standard. And we did see, so this is hinting at some of our analysis that is in the full report, that higher levels of NO2 were observed at lower wind speeds, which pointed to localized pollution sources like vehicles and other combustion activities. If we go to the next slide. Ozone readings, again, stayed lower than EPA standards across all monitoring sites. And trends in the ozone levels were consistent with its secondary formation and the wind data that we collected. Lastly, VOCs. The VOC levels appeared similar across the monitoring network, with spikes being reflected across monitors, but at different sizes when they occurred. Consistent with higher levels of VOC at low wind speeds, pointing to regional sources of VOCs. And by regional here, we're talking about outside of the immediate area of Beaver, but perhaps not all that much further than that. Whereas with ozone, we're talking a little further afield. Anyway, that was a lot that I just threw at you. And again, hopefully you have some time to digest that, take a look at that full report. And as you know, I'll be here for questions, but for now, I'm going to pass it back over to Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Nathan. I just want to quickly go over just some of the just protecting your health with some of the things that EHP has talked about previously. So with air, we just want to make sure that people are able to pay attention to your weather and air quality. You can look at sites like airnow.gov, or there's an app for that. You can keep your windows closed at night. That is when air is most stagnant. So any pollutants or any of the PM 2.5 that is there is not going to be moving out of the area. You can use an air purifier. EHP recommends the Austin Air Health Mate. And then you want to reduce outdoor contaminants, you can contact Reducing Outdoor Contaminants in Indoor Spaces, or ROCKIS. They offer a DIY low-cost fan filter that can be used to help remove particles if the Austin, or if some of the other air filters that are on the market are seem a little bit expensive. And then removing avoidable indoor air pollutants, we have a full list of recommendations on our website, which include things like vacuuming instead of sweeping to reduce airborne particles, and using a HEPA filter with your vacuum if you are in the market for a new one. We talked about the AQI as well, so just to make sure to look at that whenever you're looking at those air quality forecasts. And then there are a bunch of tools to check air quality. So there is airnow.gov. But I also want to point out the wonderful website that is part of this project that is on the BCMAC website. They have those great color AQI reports that are using the EPA standards in order to report that out. So it is good information from these monitors that we're talking about today. There are also a number of purple air monitors in the county. So if you go to Purple Air Maps, or just Google search Purple Air Maps, you'll be able to find that. You'll be able to zoom in on Beaver County and be able to see maybe a more localized air qualities for PM 2.5. But that is what Purple Air is kind of more focused on. For other pollutants such as ozone, Air Now has that, but we, with this project, have ozone, PM 2.5, and the NO2 levels as well. And then protecting your health with the water. So if you have questions about water testing, contacting Dr. John Stoltz at Duquesne University. If you have concerns with the water, avoid using it for drinking, cooking, or making drinks such as baby formula. Using it for baby formula, consider using alternative sources of water when showering, because VOCs can become airborne, or use low-cost options such as a shower bag. Making sure to ventilate rooms when you're using water in your bathroom. And consider purchasing a filter for your water that may be able to attach to your faucet. And then one thing, just as a general rule of thumb, if you have any concerns about a specific piece of infrastructure or something that's going on near your home, keeping track of your symptoms, weather conditions, environmental conditions, just things that are going on, and making sure that that is dated, that can help whenever you speak with your doctor, or if you are filing a complaint and you want to show that this is a chronic issue, making sure that you have that information ready. That way you can, when you speak with a member of the DEP, or maybe a member of the Department of Health, they can kind of help you with tracking those symptoms. And we have a bunch of resources online with the event reporting form, with the DEP. And if you have any other questions for EHP, just in general, please feel free to reach out, and I can drop my contact information in the chat. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now and open it up for any questions.
Carla, did you have your hand up?
I did. I had to unmute me here. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. The part where we were talking about the nitrous oxide, I think I didn't catch up. I think my clock started ringing, my grandfather clock. But I had seen on that graph page, I kept seeing 952, 951, 949. I wasn't sure what those were referring to.
Yeah, so those are the different monitoring locations.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I apologize. The monitoring locations in the report are named a little differently than they are on, for instance, BCMAC's new Eyes on Air webpage. We can work to bring those closer together for easier comparison. But yeah, so if you go into the full report there, you can see where each of those locations are. Thanks, Aaron. 949 is in Raccoon Township, Brighton Township for 950. 951's in Beaver, 952 in Rochester.
953
in
is
Center Township.
okay.
Center
So
Township.
953 is Center Township. Okay. In so far as the fact, I mean, I realize we sit pretty close to the Shell plant. We live not far from the, well, I guess you're probably not local, but Hillary, you're local, are you not?
I am. Yeah, I'm in Center Township.
Okay, we're just off Broadhead by North Branch Church, for example. Do you know where that's
Okay.
at?
I do. Yep.
So I don't know, is that on par with Beaver? Because I forget which page we were looking at, but they said that Brighton Township was 9.5 for their monitor readings and Beaver was 12. And then I saw 7.3 and the screen went off before I could see where that was. I don't think it said Center Township, so I wasn't sure what district the 7.3 was.
Nathan, is there any way we could go back to that? Because I'm not sure which slide, but Carla, for your location, you would want to look at, you could do either. You could look at the Center Township location, or you could look at the Beaver
Okay.
location. But Beaver you know where the because we're trying to keep, out of respect, we're trying to keep all of these locations as confidential as possible because they're being hosted by community members. And so we really want to protect their addresses and everything.
I see.
However, yeah, we do. The one in Beaver is co-located with a DEP monitor. So you are within proximity of both of those. I would say those are your two closest.
Okay.
And
What pollutant?
Yeah, the
What pollutant?
7.3 that was on the VOCs specifically.
Yeah.
So slide 20, Aaron.
I would know it when I saw.
That's the one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there it is. Okay.
So Center Township is 953. So some of the lower readings we're actually seeing there.
9. Okay. If Center, 953. So that's 6.1. That's very low. I mean, isn't it or no?
951 is the Beaver monitor. So even though they're quite close, we're seeing rather different values here. And yeah, you know, VOCs, as I was saying earlier, it can be tricky to, you know, say, oh, is this a high number or not? Because we don't know what VOCs are necessarily in that mixture that the sensor is picking up. So
I understand.
Yeah, and these we've seen in other projects with similar equipment that these values can be very dependent upon sort of seasonal factors. So VOCs are just sort of more readily put out into the atmosphere when it's warmer out, for instance. So you know, this is our winter report. So this may look a bit different once we get more information.
Well, I was gonna say when you said that it is winter. So are you saying that possibly April, May, and June, and then July, August, and September, we could see a market difference?
Certainly, we could see a market difference. I you know, don't know exactly what that difference would look like. You know, there are lots of local factors beyond what we tend to see more generally. So I wouldn't want to put money on anything, but yeah, I think it would definitely be fair that, you know, all of this could look different as we go into the warmer months.
Are there, maybe this is a question for Hillary, I'm not sure. I've spoken to a few people who have claimed to have positive benzene levels. Is that easy to test? Is that simply a lab test, I would assume, or?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, Carla. We are going to present you with information about our mobile monitor, and we are going to be driving that around the county. So if you're interested in having us drop that off near your home to see if you and or your neighborhood or if anyone has that concern, we can definitely do that. Hillary is going to drop the link in the chat right now, so Carla, you can add your name to that. And Hillary, we have two Hillarys here, so I'm Hillary O'Toole. Hillary Flint is our Director of Communications
Okay,
and
I was going to
Community
say, aren't you
Engagement.
Hillary? Okay, I was,
Yeah,
all right,
there's two
so-
of us, so pass it her way.
okay,
Yeah,
so,
I was just gonna say, Carla, what you might be hearing from community members is around the East Palestine train derailment, there's been a series of different health monitoring studies by a few different universities, and some of them were detecting benzene. They were testing for benzene, they detected benzene. There are different types of tests that can be done for that, and that's actually something BCMAC is working on as a part of the AirSense project, what we're calling phase 2 with the University of Pittsburgh. So in the future, we will be looking for people to sign up for that study. But if you hear that right now in the community, it's likely that someone participated in one of the health studies around the East Palestine train derailment. Many of them were open to people in Beaver County, Lawrence County. There were some groups that did a 60-mile radius for that. So that's probably where you've heard that before.
so this mobile unit, it would actually come to this neighborhood, for example, and they test it in the air, or they test the person? I wasn't.
No, we test the air, Carla. So
Okay.
this is just a mobile air monitor. It won't plug into anything. It runs completely off of solar panels, and it transmits the data in real time via cellular networks. So it's really easy.
And we do have Dr. Fabizak here from the University of Pittsburgh. I see you went off camera, or on camera, so you might have something to chime in. We will eventually be testing humans. We're just not there yet. So the mobile monitor is testing air, but Jim, did you want to say anything about what we have coming next?
I'll just add a little bit. So, to your point, this sort of phase of work that's being presented and discussed now is the prerequisite for sort of doing that health work, right? So if we were going to, so first we have to decide what particular chemicals we would look at in humans by seeing what particular chemicals were elevated in the environment. So my question to you, when you raised the point about benzene, I wasn't sure if you were talking about elevations of benzene measured in air or measured benzene in a person.
It was just something mentioned to me by a medical health professional in Brighton Township, and there were two. And I could be very, very incorrect, but I was under the impression it was in people. Could that possibly be?
It's possible, yes. I mean, you could run a blood test to test if somebody has benzene or one of its metabolites in their blood. It's not particularly commonplace, and it wouldn't be particularly routinely available to a doctor or a physician unless they really had reason to suspect that the person was living over an abandoned gas station and had leaking old gas tanks under their house or whatever.
Okay.
And maybe that describes East Palestine to some extent, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But so that's one of the things we would sort of hope to establish and get what might be candidate chemicals. And I guess since I'm talking about this, I'll have a quick question for Hillary and or Cliff. When you were talking about the mobile monitor that could go from place to place, you mentioned, I guess, butadiene. Is that the only chemical that is prepared to look at, or do you have a whole suite that can be looked at with that?
No, we have two. So the first year we're going to focus on benzene, and then the second year our focus is for 1,3-butadiene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jim, it can only do certain chemicals at a time. The only other, so it's either set up for 1,3-butadiene or could do vinyl chloride or benzene. The only thing it can sort of do a live is B-tox. When you look at the B-tex, then it has the capability of separating those out. But otherwise, it's one-on-one.
All right, but at least it's a step ahead of the total VOC measurement. So that's great. And I do want to say that both you and Aaron and Nathan did a great job in that little presentation. I thought that was really well put together and said everything that you really could possibly say over that sort of, looking at that data. I'll have a quick question on that if you want to. I mean, I'll kind of turn into the data nerd. So if anybody else wants to jump in and do something that's more community based, but let me just ask a little bit about the relationship between the daily averages and the short-term spikes, right? And you had a graph that showed the short-term spikes, and it seemed that there was one color that was predominating the short-term spikes. Is that true?
Yeah, so it's a difficulty of turning the, large amounts of data that are sort of fluctuating rapidly into a static image that covers so much time for 15-minute averages. Simply what was happening is that was the monitor feed that was plotted sort of on top of the graph. So that was the color that was on top. We do have data systems that allow us to go in and check these and turn them on and off and look at different traces for each of the monitoring sites. I would have to go in and do that for the specific, I think it was the PM2.5 that looked particularly like what you're describing, where there was one that was like purple that seemed like all the spikes were just purple. But the reality is from that graphic, it might just be that the purple one is the one that was put on the graph last. So it is the one that's visible where the other ones are sort of behind it.
Right, because you had, there were a couple that had very high daily averages. And since you're exactly right, that you're collecting data over very short periods of time, that those daily averages that are that high must be accompanied by a lot of short-term spikes to get the average up that high, right?
Yeah, so when we see elevated 24-hour average readings, often you'll sort of see a hump associated with that, where you'll maybe not see a huge change in the amount of short-term events you're seeing, but when the event ends, it's coming down to a higher baseline effectively, right? So you might still have a spike that goes up to 100 on a day like that, but instead of going back down to 5, it comes back down to 40, right?
Okay. And that contributes to the average, sure.
Right, yeah.
And another way you might want to think about looking at the data, and maybe you already have, but I think you had something that looked like a pie chart with the color codes for the, where were these short-term spikes? And I assumed that was all of the monitors put together, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so what I think might be quite informative is if you did that, but on a monitor specific level.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd find here's an area that is having a lot more percentage of time that it's in the yellow or the orange compared to the other particular areas, which might not be as sort of visibly apparent in the way you've shown it so far.
Yeah, that's a great idea. In our reporting platform, we have a table that has all of that information in, and Aaron made that pie chart from that table, so we could simply make several more pie charts. That one would not be a big lift. I appreciate the suggestion. Anything you wanted to say? Aaron?
100% right about ozone. In fact, I would bet that the data will change over time and that you'll
Okay.
see elevations in ozone in the winter or in the summer months.
Any other questions?
I have a million, but I don't want to keep everybody here all evening.
That's
When
what
they
this
No,
is
go ahead.
do
for.
That's why we're here. Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Well, when they do this monitoring, are those results made public?
They're live on our website in real time. Yes. Yep. So if you ever have a question about, a smell or anything, or you're concerned, you can go onto our website. I think Hillary's going to drop it in the chat right now
Mhm.
and take a look at the Center Township and Beaver area monitors. Yep.
I haven't, we have a purple air monitor here. And I can honestly
good.
say they're green almost all the time, which is
That's
good.
great. Yep.
And the only time it changes outside is when my husband's mowing.
Yeah.
And other than that, it seems to be green. We're pretty on top of the shell planted. I think I'm a little surprised because, and we recently got 2 very nice, expensive air purifiers, but they don't kick on very much unless I'm cooking.
Oh, right. Well, the purple air monitors only monitor for particulate matter.
Okay.
So these monitors are going to give you different information. So not better or worse, just much different.
Mm-hmm. When you say these, you mean?
I mean the 5 air monitors that we have placed around the county.
Oh,
so
the 5. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is moderate on the pie chart where I was trying to take notes as fast as I could, and I saw that you had the 11% unhealthy, only 1.1% up to the highest, very unhealthy, 11% for sensitive groups, and then the remainder was 70% with 45% being moderate air. So how would you define, is moderate considered good, or because they had 40, I think it was in a green, it said 45% and then 25% was good. And the other 45% was moderate air. And that was the air quality. That was the graph that that had the AQI reads.
Right. Yeah. So I'm happy to take a crack at that, but Cliff, did you raise your hand to respond to this particular point?
I was raising my hand to respond to Carla's question about the PM 2.5. I didn't quite hear. I was messing with my phone trying to figure out how to get it to work to put my hand up. But Shell is not a major PM 2.5 emitter. It's not like a coal power plant or the steel works or the coke ovens.
Mhm.
Okay, it is bigger nitrogen dioxide and VOC emitter. So that's why you may, not see a big change there. And what was the question you just raised?
Well, I can take that one, Cliff. So, the difference between, and thank you for that. That's a great point to make. The difference between the good and the moderate AQI categories. So good is basically, we're saying that there isn't much concern, little or no risk that we're seeing from these levels. Whereas moderate, we're saying the air quality is acceptable, but there may be a risk for some people still, some particularly extremely susceptible or vulnerable populations. So another way to think about it is that the moderate category is above the annual average, right? So if you're in that moderate category all of the time, then the EPA says that's not good, right? You're not meeting the national ambient air quality standards at that point if you're always in moderate. So you want to be in good. Moderate is, if you're not in good, moderate's the next best thing. But certainly it is indicating a slight elevation of health risk.
Right. That the orange and the yellow basically is that your body somewhat can tolerate more pollution if you're really in good health. So for as Nathan said, that yellow is people that have, some serious pre-existing conditions and stuff really need to make caution. If it gets up in the orange, then, people that have slightly more or less pronounced, but still that. And then, red is where almost everybody would be affected by the air pollution.
Did Shell bring down, I had remembered, I've not been fortunate enough to attend all of these due to a work schedule, but I remember going to one that they had said that was it in 2024 or 2023, that by February 21st, they had exceeded their allowed pollution level emissions in that first, 7 weeks of the year than they were allowed all year.
Yeah, within the first 2 months when they started in November of 2022, they have a 12-month accumulate rolling sum of what they are allowed to emit, and this was for VOCs, and it's up around 500, and in those 2 months they put out 600 tons of VOC. So yes,
500 for the year, you're saying?
yes, I don't know what the exact, it's 523 or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the number is, but they exceeded that number within when they take the average. The way they do it somewhat, like Nathan and Aaron, everything has to kind of, yeah, depending on how you average together. And what they do is you take 12, whatever month you're in now, then you would take 11 months preceding that, take those numbers and add it up. When you go to the next month, you drop the oldest month and add that up. So you can see that previously, before they started, they hadn't really put out a lot of VOCs. And so therefore, to put out enough that your 12-month rolling average, exceeded it in the first 2 months, means they really did a lot the first 2 months.
Mhm.
And then what happens is, even if they emit, and we can see what they emit per month, and even if they go below, if you take the rolling average, let's say it's 520, and you divide it by 12, theoretically, that's what they're allowed to do each month. And every preceding or forward month that they don't do below that, they keep adding to their exceedance of their total sum. They're not going to be able to get down until they actually have several months where they emit less than they're allowed to emit per month. Does that make sense, Carl?
Yes, it does. It does.
Carla,
And
if
apparently
you,
some of the meetings that are coming up, I was looking at a number of different ones. I think on an email, different ones in Beaver and Rochester that are going to discuss what their application for what they're applying for new permits. Did I see
Mhm.
something like that in an email? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So are you saying you received those from us, from our organization, or from Shell?
No, I was pretty sure. I can't think my husband took my phone. Actually, it was when I first turned this on before I launched the meeting, there were a bunch of different dates upcoming where there were meetings that it was going to discuss what it might mean as they apply for different permission to pollute.
Right. Okay. So I believe those are ours. And
Yeah, because they were on your site. It didn't come
yeah.
myself.
Hillary Flint dropped the link in the chat. So you're welcome to join anytime, Carla. We are going to discuss the plan permit and that process that they have to go through and what that means for us as a community. And then also the Title V permit and what that means. And we're also going to allow space to talk about how we can provide a public comment and make sure that our voices are heard and our concerns are heard about the levels of pollution that we're about to experience. But I think for right now, if you just for housekeeping things here, Shell has a community page on the DEP website. Anytime you want to see violations, including anytime that they have exceedances, which is what Dr. Lau was talking about, you can click on every letter and it details out what happened. What we want to make sure that everyone in the county and like the community knows is that yes, Shell is there. Yes, they're a petrochemical facility. Yes, they're a huge polluter in Pennsylvania. We just want to make sure that everyone in the county is aware that there are other large polluters as well. And that's why Aaron and Nathan and EHP have done such a great job in marking out all of the other facilities that are required to have a Title V permit. And so make sure that you make note of that. It means that they are under the same type of requirement under the Clean Air Act as Shell. And so it's really important that we talk about all of the polluters, not just like one polluter, even though we know that it's massive and it is a major polluter. I just want to make sure that we're all aware of that.
Okay.
And then so yes, we
Okay.
have another meeting tomorrow actually in Oh, sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I was gonna say, and the only thing I was just gonna add is even with the difference between like major and minor in Title V or not, I think a lot of people would probably be really surprised with what a technical quote unquote minor source is, because some of these actually are pretty big facilities. Some of them are foundries, some of them are steel making facilities. So you would probably come up to these facilities and think, oh, that's big, but they fall under those minor sources. So to Hillary's point, just thinking of, any facility could be one that is causing some of those spikes that we have seen.
Thanks, Aaron. So yeah, Carla, we have one tomorrow actually in Beaver at the new pool house, which should be pretty swanky from what I hear. And then on Monday, we have, and not the next Monday, but the following Monday, we have a project spotlight meeting. It's really a sense of community for anyone who holds a current purple air monitor. So you are welcome to join. This one's going to be at the Monaco Library at 6 p.m. But also part of that project gives out more purple air monitors for free into the community. And all of this is to kind of just promote awareness and get more participation when it comes to air quality. Go ahead, Jim, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question to you. So regarding these meetings that you're going to be holding about permitting, are they, and I just don't know whether these are in reference to a specific change that Shell wants to do in terms of a permit, or are you just trying to educate and inform about the permitting process in general for all of these types of plants?
Good question. No, these are actual permit applications that have been submitted. So their Title V application was submitted in July of last year, I believe, or maybe September. And then they submitted a plan approval application in September as well. So they're looking to obtain some new permits regarding their water facility and a couple other things. And you are more than welcome to join us in that space. I don't want to dive into it too much in this meeting because this really isn't what that was the focus of this one is for. And we need to just be kind of neutral in this space. But yes, please join us tomorrow if you can, Jim. And if not, I'm more than happy to talk with you offline.
Sure. Is it tomorrow in person or online?
It's in person. It's at 6 p.m. at the Beaver Pool House.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Well, please, so we talked about the 2 meetings that we have coming up. Again, please take a look at our website, our events page, because we're going to be updating with even more dates as we get into the summer, and hopefully have some like really fun, engaging partner work to talk about in the future too, with Jim and his team at the University of Pittsburgh, and also with Three Rivers Waterkeeper, who we also partnered with on this project. So we're just really excited about some of the information that we want to share with everyone. Just a reminder, our new website is up and running, so you can find all of the information that we've been talking about today. The full EHP report that we were just reviewing today will be up and available tomorrow on our website. So please visit and look for it. And then I did want to say, in regards to our project spotlight meeting that we have coming up on Monday, we have air sampling results from February 4th that we're going to discuss. And you can join that meeting via Zoom as well, Carla. So please, if you can't attend on Monday in person on the 31st, you're welcome to join online. And then I think Hillary has the link to that in the chat. So yeah, we're excited to talk about those samples. And then, of course, the fastest way to stay up to date on any new happenings or anything going on is to join our mailing list or follow us on all of our social media accounts. And I think Hillary's going to drop those in the chat as well. If you note our Linktree link, we have a survey in there specifically looking for Beaver County residents. So if you haven't taken it yet, we would appreciate it if you did. And that's really all we have today. Thank you so much, Nathan and Aaron and the entire EHP team. We could not do this without you. I mean, we really would not have any idea how to get all of this reporting together. It's just invaluable for us. So we appreciate your work, your dedication, your time with us, and all of the planning and project work that we've been through. So we are really looking forward to continued conversations around this. So thank you again. Thank you, Jim, for joining. Thank you, Carla, for all of your questions. Thank you, Dr. Lau. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.